The brass bell above Thorne Antiques jingled as Olivia locked the shop door, its familiar sound now tinged with melancholy. Rain pattered against the display window, where priceless antiquities sat illuminated by warm light's artifacts her grandfather had spent decades collecting, each with stories she knew by heart. Another day, another dollar, she murmured to herself, though the ledger book open on the counter told a different story. Red numbers crawled across the page like bloodstains. At 28, Olivia Thorne had built a reputation as one of Boston's most talented art restorers. Museums and collectors sought her meticulous hands to breathe life back into damaged masterpieces. Yet here she stood, watching her family legacy crumble despite her best efforts. Her phone buzzed with a text from the bank. Final notice. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Olivia's fingers trembled as she traced the edge of a partially restored Renaissance painting. Her grandfather had taught her restoration techniques from childhood, his patient hands guiding hers over cracked canvases and tarnished frames. "We don't just restore objects," he would say. "We preserve stories." Now Harrison Thorne lay in Boston Memorial Hospital after his second stroke, unaware that the shop he'd built from nothing teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Olivia had discovered the debts only after taking over operations, a massive loan, against the business that made no sense for her frugal grandfather. The apartment above the shop felt colder than usual as she climbed the creaking stairs. Walls lined with art books and restoration supplies led to her small workspace, where a medieval triptych awaited her attention. Commissioned work that paid well, but not enough. Never enough lately. Sleep eluded her that night. At dawn, she dressed, carefully in her most professional outfit, a navy blazer and pencil skirt that had seen too many important meetings. The bank manager, Mr. Peterson, greeted her with that particular smile reserved for delivering bad news. "Miss Thorne, I wish I had better options for you," he said, sliding papers across his desk. "The loan is substantial, and with missed payments, ... There must be something," Olivia insisted. "The shop's inventory alone is worth—" "Not quickly liquidated, it isn't," Peterson interrupted gently. "And your grandfather's medical bills continue to accumulate." She left the bank in a daze, barely noticing the sleek black car that had parked beside her worn Honda. A tall figure emerged, his bespoke suit incongruous against the dreary street. "Miss Thorne?" The voice was deep, commanding attention without raising its volume. "I believe we have matters to discuss regarding your grandfather's collection." Olivia turned to face striking features framed by raven hair, eyes the color of aged whiskey, studying her with unnerving intensity. Recognition flickered. She'd seen his face in financial magazines. "Nathaniel Blackwood," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "I've been trying to contact you about specific items in your shop, Blackwood Industries. Tech innovations and real estate holdings that spanned continents. What could someone like him possibly want with her struggling shop?" "I'm afraid the shop isn't open today," she replied, professionally distant despite her curiosity. "I'm not interested in shopping, Miss Thorne. I'm interested in saving your grandfather's legacy, and perhaps you can help me recover something I've been seeking for quite some time." Rain began to fall harder as Nathaniel gestured toward his car. "I have a proposition that could solve your financial troubles. Are you willing to hear it?" Something in his expression, a hunger beneath the polished exterior, sent a warning shiver down Olivia's spine. Yet the bank's final notice burned in her pocket, and her grandfather's vacant eyes haunted her thoughts. "I have 15 minutes, she said, stepping toward the car. "Make them count." The car door closed behind her with the soft, definitive click of a choice that couldn't be unmade. The interior of Nathaniel Blackwood's car smelled of expensive leather and subtle cologne. Rain drummed against tinted windows as they drove through Boston's historic streets. creating a cocoon of privacy that made Olivia increasingly uncomfortable. Your grandfather's shop contains something that belongs to my family, Nathaniel said, his voice measured and calm. A medieval reliquary, approximately 8 inches tall, adorned with sapphires and silver filigree. Olivia's mind immediately catalogued the piece. The Blackwood reliquary. It arrived 6 months ago for restoration. My grandfather never mentioned it belonged to your family. Because Harrison Thorne didn't know. Nathaniel's fingers tapped. Against his knee, the only sign of impatience in his otherwise controlled demeanor. The piece was stolen from my family estate during World War II. I've spent years tracking it. If it rightfully belongs to you, I'll return it, Olivia said simply. Though I don't see how this solves my financial situation. Nathaniel's mouth curved into something resembling a smile, though it never reached his eyes. I'm not just interested in the reliquary, Miss Thorne. I'm interested in your expertise. The car stopped before an exclusive restaurant overlooking the harbor. Over a meal Olivia barely tasted, Nathaniel outlined his proposition with businesslike precision. I've acquired an extensive collection of European artifacts requiring authentication and restoration. I need someone with your specific talents living on site at my estate for at least 12 months. You want me to abandon my grandfather's shop to become your personal art restorer? Olivia asked incredulously. I want to save your grandfather's shop by employing you, he corrected. 1 year of your expertise in exchange for clearing all debts against Thorne Antiques, covering your grandfather's medical expenses, and providing a salary generous enough to relaunch the business when you return. The figures he mentioned made Olivia's breath catch. It would solve everything: the bank, the medical bills, the shop's future. Why me specifically? Boston has many qualified restorers. Nathaniel's gaze intensified. None with your particular knowledge of medieval religious artifacts. The reliquary is just one piece of a collection I've spent years assembling. And I would live at your estate? A private wing with a fully equipped restoration studio. Your grandfather will receive the best medical care. All I require is discretion about the pieces you'll be handling. That raised a red flag. These artifacts, are they all legally acquired? I have documentation for every piece, he replied smoothly, but private collectors prefer privacy. Rain continued to fall as Olivia weighed her options. The practical. Part of her mind calculated the benefits financial salvation for her family legacy. The intuitive part warned of unseen complications. I'd need to visit my grandfather daily, she said, testing boundaries. Arrangements can be made, and I maintain full autonomy over my restoration processes. Naturally. By the time coffee arrived, Olivia had negotiated several additional terms. Nathaniel accepted each with the casual ease of someone accustomed to much larger negotiations. Do we have an agreement? He finally asked. Olivia studied the man across from her, powerful, enigmatic, and clearly accustomed to getting what he wanted. Whatever his true motives, he was offering salvation when she had no other options. 1 year, she agreed. Starting. After I've secured the shop and moved my grandfather to the care facility of my choosing. Nathaniel extended his hand. Welcome to Blackwood Estate, Miss Thorne. As they shook hands, Olivia couldn't shake the sensation that she'd just made a deal with a modern day Mephistopheles, a bargain whose true cost remained hidden in the fine print. Part 3. Gilded Cages, Blackwood. Estate sprawled across 30 acres. Of Massachusetts countryside, its Gothic revival architecture imposing against the autumn sky. 3 weeks after their agreement, Olivia arrived with 2 suitcases and a specialized toolkit, still wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Silver-haired housekeeper named Mrs. Fletcher showed her to the east wing. Mr. Blackwood had this area renovated specifically for your work, she explained, leading Olivia through a series of rooms that culminated in a studio space that made her heart race. North-facing windows, flooded the room with perfect natural light. Custom cabinets held conservation supplies that would cost a small fortune. A large workbench dominated the center, with specialized equipment arranged with surgical precision. "This is extraordinary," Olivia admitted. "Mr. Blackwood is very invested in your success here," Mrs. Fletcher replied cryptically before leaving Olivia to settle in. The first week passed in relative isolation. Nathaniel remained elusive, leaving detailed instructions about specific pieces requiring attention but rarely appearing in person. Olivia established a routine: mornings at her grandfather's new care facility, afternoons and evenings immersed in restoration work. The collection exceeded her wildest expectations. Religious artifacts spanning 5 centuries, each piece more remarkable than the last. Yet something felt off about the collection's provenance documentation. Small inconsistencies nagged at her professional instincts. On the 8th day, exploring the mansion's labyrinthine hallways after midnight, Olivia discovered a locked room adjacent to Nathaniel's private study. Curiosity overrode caution as she noted the sophisticated lock, far more advanced than would be necessary for ordinary valuables. "Exploring after hours, Miss Thorne?" Nathaniel's voice startled her. He stood at the end of the hallway, silhouetted against dimmed lights. "I got lost," she lied, stepping away from the door. "Your home is rather maze-like." "Indeed." He approached, with measured steps. "Some doors are best left unopened." "What's in there?" she asked directly. Something flickered across his features, amusement perhaps. "The heart of my collection. You'll see it when the time is right." Their proximity in the narrow hallway made Olivia acutely aware of him as more than her employer. His presence carried a gravitational pull she found increasingly difficult to resist. "I've reviewed your progress," he said, changing the subject. "Your work on the Byzantine cross exceeded expectations." "The gold inlay technique was fascinating," she replied, professional passion momentarily overriding her curiosity about the locked room. "I've never seen that particular method before. Perhaps you'd join me for dinner tomorrow? We could discuss your findings in more detail." The invitation surprised her. "I'd like that." Dinner evolved into a weekly tradition. Nathaniel proved to be knowledgeable about art history, challenging Olivia's expertise with questions that stimulated her intellectual curiosity. Gradually, his austere demeanor softened in her presence. 6 weeks into her stay, Olivia's grandfather recognized her for the first time since his stroke. His improvement coincided with her discovery of a journal hidden within the lining of an antique desk in her workshop, a journal dating to 1943, written in her grandfather's distinctive handwriting. Late that night, while Nathaniel attended a business function in New York, Olivia made her decision. Using skills learned during restoration work, she defeated the lock on the mysterious room. What she found inside stole her breath. Dozens of artifacts arranged in a private gallery. At the center stood an altar-like display containing fragments of what appeared to be an ancient manuscript. A photograph caught her attention, her much younger grandfather standing beside Nathaniel's father, both men holding a document that matched the fragments on display. When the light suddenly illuminated the room, Olivia turned to find Nathaniel in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Now you know," he said quietly, "though I suspect you don't understand what you're seeing." "These pieces were never stolen from your family," she replied, holding up her grandfather's journal. "They were entrusted to him for protection by your father." "Your grandfather was more than an antique dealer," Nathaniel said, moving into the hidden gallery with calculated steps. "He was part of a network that protected cultural treasures during and after the war." The revelation shouldn't have surprised Olivia. Harrison Thorne had always been secretive about his early years in Europe, deflecting questions with charming anecdotes that revealed nothing of substance. "And this?" Olivia gestured to the manuscript fragments. "The Codex Argentum, a 12th century alchemical text containing formulas my father spent his life trying to authenticate. Nathaniel's voice held a complex mixture of reverence and bitterness. Your grandfather was supposed to help him complete the restoration. Instead, he disappeared with key pages. That's not possible, Olivia protested. My grandfather would never. The evidence suggests otherwise. Nathaniel indicated the photograph. This was taken 3 days before your grandfather fled Vienna, with several artifacts from my father's collection. 1 week later, my father died under mysterious circumstances. Olivia's world tilted. The grandfather she adored, a thief. The journal in her hands suddenly felt heavier. Have you read this? She asked, offering the journal. Nathaniel's eyes widened slightly. Where did you find that? Hidden in my workshop. It's his account of what happened in Vienna. For the next several hours, they pored over Harrison Thorne's meticulous notes in the study, professional boundaries blurring as they pieced together a decades-old mystery. Your father wasn't just collecting these artifacts, Olivia realized aloud. He was obsessed with the philosopher's stone myth immortality through alchemy. My father was dying of cancer, Nathaniel admitted. He became desperate, convinced the codex contained actual formulas that worked. According to the journal, Harrison had removed the manuscript pages to prevent Nathaniel's father from using untested alchemical compounds on himself. A final entry described hiding the pages where only a true restorer would look. Dawn broke as they reached the journal's end. Olivia studied Nathaniel's face, seeing for the first time the wounded boy beneath the billionaire's armor. You blamed my grandfather all these years, she said softly. That's why you really brought me here, to find those missing pages. Initially, yes, he acknowledged. But I underestimated you, Olivia. Your perspective has shifted things. Over the following weeks, their relationship transformed. The search for the missing manuscript pages became a shared mission that bridged their differences. Nathaniel accompanied Olivia to visit her grandfather, watching with undisguised fascination as she spoke to Harrison about restoration techniques. You see the world differently, Nathaniel told her one evening as they worked side by side. Where? I see possessions to acquire. You see stories to preserve. Every piece has a soul, she replied, gently cleaning a tarnished silver chalice. Restoration isn't about ownership. It's about honoring what came before us. When Olivia's grandfather experienced a moment of clarity during a visit, recognizing Nathaniel as Edward's boy, they finally had their breakthrough. The cabinet with the false bottom, Harrison whispered, where light and shadow meet. In the antique shop's basement, they discovered an antique illumination cabinet with a hidden compartment containing the missing manuscript pages, along with letters exchanging between their grandfathers that revealed a far more complex relationship than rivalry. They were friends, Nathaniel realized, reading correspondence that showed genuine affection between the men. Something went wrong between them, but it wasn't what I thought. As winter melted into spring, the walls Nathaniel had built around himself began to crumble under Olivia's persistent humanity. The deadline for her year-long contract approached, creating an unspoken tension neither was ready to address. Masterpiece unveiled cherry blossoms drifted across Blackwood Estate's grounds as Olivia completed the restoration of the Codex Argentum. Nearly a year had passed since she'd first entered Nathaniel's world, a year that had transformed them, both in ways neither had anticipated. It's finished, she announced, carefully closing the restored manuscript. Nathaniel stood at the studio window, silhouetted against the spring landscape. And so is our agreement. Your year ends next week. The statement hung between them, laden with unspoken emotions. Over months of working together, professional respect had evolved into something deeper. Lingering glances, accidental touches, late-night conversations that had nothing to do with artifacts, a connection neither had planned for. I've had the lawyers prepare the final transfers, he continued, his business tone belying the tension in his shoulders. Thorn Antiques is debt-free, with additional funding as agreed. Your grandfather's medical trust is established. Thank you, Olivia said quietly, knowing the words were inadequate. For everything. That evening, they hosted a small gathering of specialists to witness the Codex's unveiling. As Olivia presented their research, she caught Nathaniel watching her with undisguised admiration. The Blackwood and Thorn families were never adversaries, she explained to the assembled scholars. They were collaborators protecting this knowledge, until humanity was ready for it. The Codex contained no magical formulas for immortality, as Nathaniel's father had believed. Instead, it detailed preservation techniques centuries ahead of their time methods for maintaining cultural heritage through generations. The true philosopher's stone was never about turning lead to gold or granting eternal life, Olivia concluded. It was about the preservation of knowledge itself. After the guests departed, Olivia found Nathaniel in the gallery where their journey had begun. The room had been transformed, no longer a secret vault, but a properly catalogued collection with plans for selective exhibition. I've been offered a position at the Metropolitan Museum, she told him, watching his reaction carefully. Head of their new restoration initiative. Pain flashed across his features before he mastered it. Congratulations. It's well-deserved. I turned it down. His head snapped up. Why would you do that? Olivia approached slowly. Because the most important restoration project isn't finished yet. The Codex is complete, he said, confusion evident. I'm not talking about the Codex. She reached for his hand. I'm talking about you, Nathaniel. About us. The mask he'd worn for so long finally cracked completely. There's so much damage in me, Olivia. Things broken long before we met. Restoration isn't about making something new, she replied, echoing the wisdom her grandfather had taught her. It's about honoring what remains and carefully rebuilding what was lost. Under her steady gaze, Nathaniel finally surrendered the truth. I don't want you to leave. Then ask me to stay not as your employee, but as your partner. Spring sunlight streamed through windows that had been covered for too long, illuminating two people who had discovered something neither had been seeking. Stay, he whispered, the simple word containing a universe of meaning. In Harrison Thorne's hospital room the following day, Olivia and Nathaniel shared their plans to establish the Thorne Blackwood Foundation, dedicated to locating and restoring cultural artifacts at risk around the world. Harrison's eyes, clear for the first time in months, moved between them knowingly. Some treasures, he said with a smile, restore us even as we restore them. As Olivia's hand found Nathaniel's, she understood the truth of her grandfather's words. Their story had begun with a bargain, continued through discovery, and culminated in transformation. Like the ancient artifacts they pieced together, their lives had been carefully restored, not to what they once were, but to something stronger at the broken places. They had become each other's masterpiece, unveiled at last.